Hello and welcome again to a new session of the Tel Aviv University course from Web 2 to Web 3, from Wikipedia to Wikidata. And today I'm especially excited to host in our session João Alexandre Peschanski from Brazil, no less. And João, I'll just let you introduce yourself and we'll take it from there.
Okay, so hi Shani, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of this course. I think this is, as you all know, a pioneer moment. So my name, as Shani just said, is João Alexandre Peschanski. I'm from Brazil. I'm a university professor, but most importantly, I'm a Wikimedian, part of the user group Wiki Movimento Brasil. And again, it's my pleasure to be involved in this course and be available for you.
Yeah, it's quite great that you joined us today, João, because you've been doing for quite a few years now some groundbreaking work related to Wikidata. And what I especially wanted for you to do today with the students is basically share your insights, your experience of using Wikidata. And we can maybe start with something that might seem small and maybe insignificant to some people, but it's very interesting to me. You mentioned that you're a university professor at the University of Sao Paulo, and what motivated you before even, besides the fact that you're a volunteer on Wikipedia and Wikimedia projects, what motivated you as a university professor to try experimenting with bringing Wikipedia and its sister projects to the classroom?
Sure. So, well, just to clarify, I actually have two positions. So I do have a position at the University of São Paulo, but this is more a research position. My teaching position is at the School of Journalism, which is a private school in São Paulo, just to clarify. And I guess I sort of started just like your students, basically. So during my graduate studies, one of my professor, actually my advisor, decided that we should do a Wikipedia assignment. And this was back in 2011. And at that time, I must confess, I thought it was really boring. And you can check it. I still use the same username, so it's easy. So I wrote on someone who was working on political theory from Poland. So I was completely unconnected to the subject. It was mandatory for the study. But then this was my first edit. And at the moment, okay, so I just want to finish my PhD. I'm just doing it as like a regular assignment. And then when I became a professor, like 3 years later, I was working on deciding what would be my approach to teaching and to understanding having a class. So I have hundreds of students. It's a very large seminar. And I decided that I would make it more impactful. And I came back to this idea that at first I was disdainful of, and decided that I would build upon it. And that's when I started using Wikipedia mostly, and then Wikimedia Commons, which is for media, and then Wikidata with students. So it's basically, as I said, it started just like your students, someone that I thought, okay, who is this crazy professor telling me to work on Wikipedia? And then after I understood it was really cool, and I decided to follow his steps.
So how was the beginning for you? What did you start with your students?
Okay, so the beginning was with Wikipedia. So this was back in 2014, and I was teaching. So my teaching is mostly directed to students of communications. So I teach two seminars, one which is political journalism, and the other one is computational digital journalism. And though it might seem odd, I actually started with political journalism there were around 200 students back in 2014 with whom I've worked on improving content on Wikipedia in Portuguese about the killed and disappeared people during the Brazilian military dictatorship. This was actually a very important beginning for several reasons, but one of them was that this education program was built as a partnership with a committee of the Brazilian government that was investigating these human rights crimes during the dictatorship. And this was called the National Truth Commission. It's part of the federal government. And we received firsthand, even before they were published publicly, their reports, their investigative reports, and the students were then looking firsthand on archival work that would actually then generate a very historical report, and they were able to base the research on these people they were writing on something that they were also discovering, the whole country was discovering. At the moment, I just built this partnership because for instrumental reasons, because it was practical, so it was a source of reference, basically. And as you know, Wikipedia is all about referencing and having valid and reliable sources. But then it became a very powerful project that showed to many of us, including myself, the power that we can actually have when we work with with Wikimedia projects and Wikipedia in particular, is that you can actually rewrite the history of your country. And so we've created like one article per student, so around 200 entries, improved a lot of other entries because it was a very large program that ran over a semester. And there were like in just after 2 months, millions and millions of viewers. And again, this good start was for me key to actually moving these projects. But this was again Wikipedia, and that's how it started for me.
That's a great story, and I think it demonstrates so many things that we've been talking about over the years. But I think one of the main things that are interesting here is the fact that you, as a representative of an educational institution, collaborated with what we call today government institutions, in a sense, or governmental institutions, right? But basically, institutions that curate information. It could be archival information, or it could be books, museums, whatever. But these institutions have resources that we can then use, and they have experts. And these combinations create a win-win of sorts. Like you mentioned, you've basically helped rewrite the history of your own country. And I think it's you can maybe share how the students viewed that project. Did they like it, or did they feel like you felt at the beginning when you just started out?
Yes, so I actually wrote a very detailed report on this first case. It was published as a journal article. So I have very good data, which is not something I was able to do for later projects. So on this one, I actually have a good answer. So students at the beginning, they were very skeptical because back in 2014, there had been only one Wikipedia education program in Brazil. So it was not really part of the culture. This is a bit different from in other countries where this program started before. So the first one that was published on the literature, I think it comes back to 2007. So Brazil was kind of late in this process. And Wikipedia was not seen, and I think this is still true in many other societies and countries, as something that you should actually work on when you are in academia. So students were very convinced by what they call this crazy project. And again, this was my first year as a professor, so the dean of the school wasn't very convinced as well. So though I was making this as an assignment, I was mandated by the school to actually also have an exam. So it was a lot of burden for the students because they had to go through the normal track of being assigned like a 4-hour writing exam that now I don't need normally to do, and this other activity that was mandatory on my end. So okay, so but then so they started with skepticism, and then for them, and I still have contact with several of the students that were in my first program. It was eye-opening, just because, and there were many. I do have a list of qualitative comments, and I asked the students to write freely on what they thought, and they also had a more quantitative report on their experience. But I just mentioned some qualitative data. One of them, and one student said that for her it was eye-opening, as the person she had written on was her age, and it was for her a process of self-discovery. So she began, like many students begin, working just because it's an assignment and it's mandatory, and she wants to get over with the seminar. But then for her it was a really deep experience, and it was deep in the sense of understanding her role in society, and also the role this university experience that she was having. And this seminar was for the, we call here the third year. I think it's, I forgot the name in the US, but it's the year before you end your courses. And for her, it was an understanding of what she was doing at the university, because it was something, this project was different from what she was doing in her first job experience, like as a trainee. It was different from what she was expecting to do as a professional. It was different from other activities she was engaged with. It was a moment for her in which being part of the university community was meaningful. So this is just one person. No, it's one comment, but there was in general in the same line. It was a process of, okay, so I was skeptical at the beginning, and then I really understood that this was giving me the power to change how what I know matters, which is again something that an involvement with the Wikimedia projects really makes perfect sense for everyone that gets involved with. You're changing the way the public opinion works, how we have access to culture. You are basically, again, changing how a culture and how the world works.
Wonderful. So thank you again, and blessings from Israel. And stay safe and healthy, all of you. We're closing the broadcast now, and we'll see you on.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.